Hello, my name is Tasha. I came to know Patricia just recently, actually, because maybe even over a year ago now, I first noticed a poster that was hanging in a window of a downtown Bangor business. And the photo was striking on this poster, and it gave me pause, so I stopped long enough to notice that it was a domestic violence awareness group. Thought, oh, isn't that cool? Kept seeing the same photo as I walked by all the time and thought to myself, I'd really love to have a copy of that photo. The woman in this photo is resonant for me and my personal situation, my personal connections. I'd love to have a copy for my wall at home. And I never remembered to do it for months and months. And then just a couple of months ago, maybe I finally thought, okay, it's time to, this keeps rising. It's time for me to make contact. So I sent a random email to a random contact address on a website and said, hi, I saw your poster. Would it be possible to get a copy? I don't know who this person is, but this is what she looks like. And I got a response from Patricia, and it precipitated a whole conversation between us that led to me being here tonight.
Thank you. And Melody, can you talk about how we come to know each other?
So I met Patricia in Knox County when I was incarcerated. She's helped me with a lot of like things that I didn't really realize, like, she inspired me to write. Actually, she inspired me to write.
Yeah, I met Melody when she was at the Knox County Jail, and she mentioned that she was getting her GED. And so we were there for there was going to be a celebration, and I think she said that she wanted to write an essay. So I said that I facilitated for it to be published in the local paper. And I think that was the first time she was published. And then she said that she wanted to write a book. And she's written two. So she has two books, and one of them, at least one of them, is here. And working on a third, children's book. Could each of you take a few minutes to just let's just take a few minutes, like 4 minutes or something, just to sum up your domestic abuse situation, and then we're going to get more into detail after that.
So the course of my life involves a couple of different incidents, 3 specific incidents that I could speak about, but the one I'd like to share today is about what happened when I was in a grown-up intimate and romantic relationship with someone that I met at a job. So I was working, and this person was also working there, and got to know each other a little bit. He didn't last very long at that job. He quit after just a short period of time, but it was enough time for us to make enough of a connection that we stayed in touch after he had left. And it developed into this relationship. And this person was a combat veteran, is a combat veteran, served in Iraq in the army, and had lots of wounds from that experience. And so I had never been in a relationship with a combat veteran before, and I recognized a lot of the things that he was living with, the symptoms of his service. They resonated for me in a way. And so I thought, I'm the right person to help this man. And so that's what I tried to do until it nearly killed me. And then the authorities kept us apart. I wouldn't have chosen to stay apart from him even at that point. But he had flashbacks, and a lot of times the violence that I experienced from him was when he was in flashback. And if you don't know too much about how that works, a flashback isn't really just a bad memory. It's when you actually believe that you're back in the situation that originally caused the injury, and you behave as you've been trained or as you best know how to do in that situation, even though you're not in that situation anymore. So there was lots of emotional and psychological abuse. There was financial isolation and dependency, and in the end there was also physical abuse. And I haven't been with that person since the day that the incident occurred, where the authorities came and forced us to be apart, and I had to go into hiding for a little while, and then have since been rebuilding my life. And that separation happened in March of 2014. So since then, I've been rebuilding and trying to re-identify myself and decide what needs to happen for me to be able to move on from that experience.
Thank you. I just want to mention a couple of things that resonated with me from my own experience. One is that I thought I could help him. He, had this horrible childhood, which turns out mine was worse than his. But, it was always this, sad childhood and just certain things about him. And I just felt like I could help him. And the other thing is it was authorities really that separated us too, because he was arrested and I would have definitely gone back to him. But it was really bail conditions, and it was just that gave me enough time and space away from him so that I just think of it as my brain was able to be defogged and I could start seeing clearly again. So I think it's just hard to stay away, and I felt it was like an addiction really to him, that I felt like it felt like the air that I breathed, and like I just needed to be with him. So it was very hard to separate. Melody, do you feel comfortable just summing up your domestic abuse situation?
So mine started like 2006 when me and my ex had a 1-year-old. Well, he wasn't even one yet, but like I left because I started drinking, and like so I kind of just had a hard time. I felt trapped, so I left, and then I was gone to like a sober living place for like 6 months, 7, 8 months, and he actually said it clearly. You can come back home. You can come see Anthony as much as you can, because he put a protection order on me. He pretty much used our son. And he like trapped me for those whole 6, 7, 8, 9 months. I think it was 9 months. And he was like, well, you can have him all the time if you just move back. And then when I moved back, it was like, it was like his way all the time. It was I wasn't working. This was back in like 2006, 7, 8, 9, and then till 12. And then it was like that for like from 2006 to 2012. And then at 12, it snapped and it got violent. And that violence was like strangling me, like that. It hit that point because during that time, I didn't realize I was so miserable that he was actually abusing his medication, and I caught him and I was like, what's going on? What are you doing? Like, and he was like, I do it this way because it's easier. And could I say it?
Yeah, say
He
anything.
was snorting his pain pills, and I said, that's kind of gross. It's like chalk, isn't it? I did. I said it. I was just so like, I was in shock. I went in the other room. I was trying to think, I got to get out of here. This is nasty. Like, and then, I was like, but I got to stay because Anthony's here. And I don't want the same thing happening to me, to not see my son the way they did that. And I didn't have no financial help. I didn't have an apartment. I was living like in a sober house. So I didn't have nothing. So I couldn't like have that like security. And I didn't know that there was help. I didn't know that I could go to like Partners for Peace, or like I guess I wasn't brave enough. I just didn't want to like let that my son go, and like I was just trying to. So I ended up like for 6 years I was this miserable that I medicated as well for 6 years on pills. And then 2012 it came, because it was the controlling. I have to ask like to go to the store, like I'm just going to go to Walmart just to go grocery shop. And I had to like sometimes say, I'm just going to the bathroom. I remember that because I'd
You
be
had to
like,
tell him that you went to the bathroom before you went to the bathroom.
yeah, I'd be like, I gotta go to the bathroom, and then go to the bathroom, come back, or I'm gonna go get the mail. It was like that kind of control. And then like honestly, I was in a relationship with him for 13 years, and I had really no friends, because every time I had a friend, there was something wrong with that friend. And it was like that. So it was like him and his family, and then my family was limited and shut off. And so it really, really caused me to like really get in the spiral of addiction. And then it snapped, and then the police got involved too, and then I slowly started rebuilding. You know, I did go to Partners for Peace, and they did help me, and I couldn't believe I got my own place. I went to that support group for a whole year.
And Partners for Peace?
Every Wednesday I was there like faithfully. So it's good.
Well, a few things, there's a lot to talk about here, but he got a protection order on you. How did that happen?
He got a protection order on me because we had got into a fight, and we both were fighting over drug pills, and then the cops came, and then like he said that I, like, grabbed him, and like both of us were not behaving well, but they kind of looked at me because he's like he was in the Air Force with like honorable discharge and had like no criminal record. Like he was like he had like top clearance, like in the Air Force he had top like security, where like he had the codes for like nuclear weapons. Like he had a high rank. So I don't know if it was that, or like they looked at me like, oh, she's just this, you know. And so it was like they charged me with it. So I was like, all right.
Did you have a police record at that point?
I did have a police.
And that's a horrible thing that I hear about a lot, is that these guys use it because the woman may have, and sometimes it's because of the abuse, they have a charge on them, and the guy knows it. And therefore, that's why the woman would be afraid to call police. And then it works against them in a case like this. And isn't it true that a lot of times the woman is defending the guy, so she's not going to say that he did it, but he's willing to say that she did it. So that gets you in trouble too. And then the other thing is independency. And that was the same thing with me. When I met my ex, I had a career. I was a newspaper reporter. I had my own apartment. I had my own car. Totally independent. And then, for love, moving back east with him, I quit my job. I sold my car, gave up my apartment. And that night is when I saw this temper for the first time. And I couldn't work because he wanted me available all the time. So I went from completely independent to dependent. And I was trapped. I had nothing. I had no money. And it sounds like that you too. I mean, here you are. Did he start off? And I wanted to put this to both of you. Kasia, when it started, did he present it like he was going to take care of you? Or was there an element of that at all with you?
Absolutely not, no.
Okay. And was there some financial abuse though with you? And if so, what was the financial abuse?
He was medically retired from the service, and so he had a service disability rating, and it's hard to distill it down to a few sentences, but I helped him to get what he was owed by the government for his disabilities. I went through that whole process in getting that established for him so that he had an income that was sustainable, and he had health care, and he had all that he needed. In the process of doing that, I made myself more and more accessible to him, and he took advantage of that and capitalized on that until it got to the point when he was financially well supported. I quit my job, I retired, and became his caregiver. And so that was great, because then we both had an income, and I could do what I was going to be doing anyway, taking care of him, and helping him with the things that he couldn't do himself, like grocery shopping and making phone calls to make appointments and advocating for him. But now my income is dependent on that role. And so the moment the authorities got involved and the assault was recorded, and it was we were separated, that moment the VA dropped me like a hot rock. And I had no more benefits, no more income, no, so we were not legally married, so that's it. And so
Wow.
that was not just a threat, but reality, you know, and that situation.
And then also, how many years was it before he was physical, Melody? Did you say before it became a physical, it was a physical assault?
Really only right at the,
I was asking Melody.
oh, I'm sorry.
But no, but yeah, let me ask Melody then, yeah, I mean,
So it was like that last year was okay, so met in 2003 and then went through that whole pill phase. And now I just realized that he did that to me twice, that he called the police so that
Oh,
would
he keeps doing
happen.
it
And then
twice,
the
yeah.
third time, they finally, I was like, this is what like I said, this is, he, if it wasn't for my son, like honestly, I had to call my son and to help me.
How old was your son at the time?
Because he was like honestly strangling me with that like thing.
Oh my God.
Like, I'm not gonna say what it is, but it's something that he used and he had a grip on it so bad I couldn't ungrip it.
Oh my God.
And I had to call for my son, and my son like came and like kicked him. And it got loose, and then I went downstairs real quick and I called the cops. And then I was like, this is like, he needs to go, like, this is like, and then. Yeah.
Did he, wait, there's a lot.
But that was, oh, I didn't answer the question. So it was like, that was in 2012, and then, but I thought, again, I was like, okay, after like a year, I was like, well, I went back again
But
for a
so,
couple of years.
first of all, did he get arrested for that when he almost strangled you?
He got arrested for it, and like, that was a dangerous situation. He should have got charged more, but it was just, he did get the domestic violence assault
What happened? How
and
many,
another charge. He
Any
got
time
like
in jail
3
for that?
charges.
any time in prison or jail for what he did for almost strangling you, which should be attempted murder?
He got 30 days, and then he had to do Batter's intervention program, which for the 2 times, he got kicked out of the class
Twice.
and then because DHS made him take it, and I said, I said, I'm about to get custody and you can't, because you can't take this you can't, I don't understand why you can't. There's certain words that the teacher will correct it's an intense class, and they teach you, they should teach that in school.
Okay. So, but basically, what I was trying to get to, because sometimes these guys are really patient, so sometimes it could be 10 years before they hit you. And but it was that, in my case, it became physical, I'd say. It happened very fast. We met in August. We were married in March, and I think maybe after I moved in with him, I think it got physical. I don't know. It happened fast once I was dependent on him. But was the first time from when you met him to when it became physical, even with all that control, Melody, was it a long time, or did it get physical pretty early on with you? Like,
He didn't get really physical. It was all mental.
Yeah.
It was all mental and control. And then it got physical at the end. Like,
Yeah.
that violent physical could have been the end.
Yeah.
Like in 2012.
And then, Kasia, for you, as far as the time frame before it got physical?
Similar, it was at the very end, and there was a progression. The first thing that happened when he turned his anger, his physical violent anger toward me, was I was hiding in the bedroom because he was raging, and he started taking jars of food out of the fridge and bringing them into the bedroom and opening them and dumping them on me.
Oh my God.
Over and over he did this, and
God.
then the next incident, again, I would freeze response, shut down, hiding from him, and he came and found me and grabbed my sweatshirt and shook me by my sweatshirt. And then from then it escalated again. The next time I tried to leave, I tried to escape and get away, and he grabbed me from behind so hard that I had fingertip shaped bruises on my arms from being pulled back into the house. So,
and none of this came to the attention of authorities?
No, none of that was ever. And, I watched him exhibit extreme violence toward our possessions. He'd smash up our home. One time he took 24 eggs and threw them one at a time all over the walls of our apartment, all over my clothes, everything was covered with raw egg. That's just an example. So all of this, the extreme violence was to other things, but at the end, when it turned to me, it all happened very quickly.
And how could you go through that and not have severe PTSD? So traumatic, just hearing what you went through. And did you normalize it? Like, I know, I guess I kind of did. Like, I never really, even though he almost killed me numerous times, I never thought he would kill me. Did you ever feel that too, that somehow he wouldn't, or that you kind of didn't realize how bad it was until you got out? Or
I can say for certain that I didn't ever believe that I was actually going to die until the end. It's hard to describe if you haven't experienced it yourself, but things can be scarring, things can be traumatic, things can be bad memories for the rest of your life. But when there's truly a PTSD incident, the brain switches in that moment. You believe for sure that you're going to die. It's why the most common cause of PTSD, I think, in America is car crashes, because for sure you're going to die in that moment.
Interesting.
Yeah, there's the switch flips. Like it's one thing to feel threatened, it's one thing to feel scared, but when you actually believe for sure that you're going to die is when that thing breaks. That doesn't really get unbroken, and that's that didn't happen for me until the very end. Even as bad as things got, as many secondary triggers as I ended up with because of his behavior, none of that was as profound as the moment when he told me that he wanted to murder me. I believed 100% that I was going to die.
And then Melody, just about the kids, like your son, like how old was your son when you called him to and he saved you, and how old was he when that happened?
He was like 8.
Like, think about that, an 8-year-old boy going through that and what that did to him. And thank goodness he was there, but the trauma for the children. And does anybody want to talk about, I mean, I know with my kids, like it's been a long process. First of all, for mother-child relationship, where I was in the home and didn't protect, I didn't protect my kids by getting them out. I didn't think I could. But also what my children went through. And do you want to say anything about that, Melody, about your son or how he's doing or what's going on there? Or
So he's been living with his dad now for a little bit because of things, but he was in counseling for a little while, and I think he's in counseling now, but sometimes I get worried about him because he's, I'm afraid that generational will go down
the cycle.
because the cycle, I'm afraid of it because he could be argumentative with me and disrespectful, but I don't know if he's just a teenager. Then I get this sweet kid sometimes, but then I honestly haven't talked to him for 6 weeks because he threw something in my house because I didn't let him borrow the car because of the insurance. I said, because I have to straighten the insurance out. I can't let anybody use the car, like that extra car. And so like when I had an appointment and I got back and there was my wall, that wall part there, was like something was thrown. There was like a hole in my wall near the coffee maker. I was like, okay. And I noticed my clock was crooked. And I was disappointed. So I like took a photo of it and I sent it to him and he never replied back. And so now we're kind of like, I'm waiting for an apology because I'm gonna have a talk with him and tell him like you can't do that. And I'm afraid, but sometimes I think he needs help too. I think it's like that because he needs to detach. He needs to detach from his dad because it's not healthy. It's not healthy. And I don't know. I think that's the reality of it. And I'm not afraid to say it. It is the reality of it. And he says he wouldn't hit a woman, but he's 19 and you know how 19 teenagers are. You don't even know what they're gonna, it's unpredictability for a little bit. So I'm just gonna wait it out for a little while. But hopefully it's just I'm not gonna give in till I get that apology and a good talk, and I'm gonna let him know that that's really not good. You can't do that, especially to your mom.
Mhm.
So,
I hear about that, about women going through really bad abuse by their husband. And then their sons, I'm not saying this is the same thing, but their sons talk to them like the husband did. Does anybody have any comments or questions for anybody up here, or comments of your own about what we've been talking about? Anything you want to share of about yourself, anything that you'd like to say, or Mary, is there something you want to say?
I have a little bit of a different perspective.
Come on up.
I met my abuser when I was 12. And we started dating when I was 16. So we were together for 35 years, married for 30. And we had 2 children. And he was controlling, right? But I had a very controlling and verbally and emotionally abusive mother. And so it was like the tug of war between her and him, who was going to get me. Of course, I chose him because I thought he was going to be my hero. He owned me from the moment I started dating him. It was very clear that he said we were going to get married and this is how many kids we're going to have and everything. And then he started to slowly squeeze my life out of me. So all of the interests that I had, I was a musician. I did theater, I did art, had lots of friends and interests. And that took away from attention on him. And so he slowly worked me down until I basically gave up my life for him. And I always had to work because we never had enough money, ever. And I didn't know, because he didn't allow me control the finances, that he was stealing the money that I was earning and like gambling it away and buying alcohol or whatever. I experienced every single type of abuse from him. I would say the worst of all of it was the sexual abuse. I won't go into details, but it built over the years, and I raised my children, and I always thought I'm going to be the best mom. And I was really close with my kids. And then they grew up and they went to college and they got lives and they were in their 20s. And I was home alone now with this man. And I always thought, well, good. Now I can like go back to interests, go back to my, a life of things that make me happy. I did a good job. I raised my kids. I'm a good mom. I'm a good wife, daughter, sister, whatever. But I've done my job and I've done it well and I want my life. And that enraged him. So what started out from, years and years of abuse, where like he would give me a gift, like a necklace, and then rip it off me. He always like destroyed things, presents that he gave me, literally like rip a necklace off. He would block me leaving. He would punch the wall. He would rage and scream and call me everything under the sun. But I was trying my best to hide that from my own children. Now, I think that if you live in a house, it's not hidden.
Could I just ask, just to say, to bring this to the group, did you, Mel, did you feel that you were hiding, and Cash, did you feel that Mel, did you feel you were hiding it from Anthony, his behavior?
yeah, it was a little unpredictable, but there was one time that he like grabbed Anthony. Like Anthony was only 5 and he grabbed his shirt and I freaked out. I said, don't do it, because I won't be happy. He let his little shirt go and he never hit Anthony. I wouldn't allow it. The little boy, he never got spanked. Maybe that's why he's like that, but he is spoiled, but like that was one thing I was like, do not hit that little boy. I will be angry if you touch him. But that was, I'll never forget that, or like spilling milk.
Oh, my
Like
goodness.
Anthony would spill milk or like,
Mhm.
you know, or accidentally, and he'd raise his voice so loud, and I'm like, whoa, you
We
know,
were
and that like
all-
high,
yeah.
and then Anthony would just be like,
We were all so terrified of spilling anything, like when you went out to dinner,
Mhm.
like, oh my God, don't knock over that, the 3-year-old, don't knock over that glass, and I'm seeing nods in the, you know,
it's true.
Right.
yeah.
So like he put my kids in danger when they were very, very young, and I mean horrible danger. And so I started walking on eggshells to protect them, and always, always did his bidding, always tried to keep him happy, always tried to appease him. So long story short, I know I was talking for a long time here, but my kids grew up, they moved out, my daughter got engaged, everything looks great. I start reaching out to other people with interests, my old friends, people that I've met, you know, just everywhere, reaching out, getting involved in different things. And the more I did, the worse his anger became. And then he started to get really physical. One night he just was screaming at me, and I just said, I'm going to scream back at him. You know, I just said, I'm not taking this anymore. I'm so done. And he chased me up the stairs, grabbed me by the ankles, pulled me down, sat on me, and then proceeded to block my airway. And I saw the stars and the whole black spots, and I thought I was going to die. And then he jumped up off me and he left. And he had never done anything like that before. So I'm like, okay, now what? And he's gone overnight, and then he's apologizing and apologizing. I'll never do it again. I'm so sorry. I said, you will never do that again. Well, 2 weeks later, the same argument came up. And he set my house on fire when I was in bed. He doused it in gasoline and he set it on fire right underneath my bed. And I was barely able to escape. He killed my dog. And the worst part of the whole thing is he was able to manipulate and control the whole situation even after that. And he convinced my entire family that it was all my fault. And my children became estranged from me. I never got to go to my daughter's wedding, my only daughter. I have 3 grandchildren I've never met, all because of this one manipulative sociopath.
And Mary, I'm so sorry to hear that. And Mary actually runs a group for us that is women who are estranged from their children, their adult children, due to the manipulation of the ex. And there are so many women out there whose adult children are not talking to them, and how talk about feeling ashamed or alone. And there's so many women that are going through that. What do you think it is that, anyway, there's a lot to talk about there. How that could happen, how horrible that would be. But you mentioned isolation also, like Kesha, was isolation a factor in your relationship?
Yes, absolutely. And if I can too, I'd just like to touch on something else Mary said about the apologies. That was a huge part of the dynamic with me also, is the after the violence, it was always softness and gentleness and praise and this creative, sensitive human being in front of me that I could not help but feel compassion for. And he would say things to me like, "You were the only person who ever really loved me."
Mm-hmm.
And like the healer's heart twists, and you can't send this person away now that they're groveling at your feet,
Mm-hmm.
apologizing for what they did, which is unforgivable.
Mm-hmm.
So, following on the story of me becoming his caregiver and retiring from my own career, we bought a camper and hooked it on the back of the truck and took off across the country. And now I'm not only isolated, from what my interests are and my path of my life that I was on. But now I'm geographically isolated from my homeland and my
Mhm.
people and my culture and everything that I knew. We were in Ohio somewhere and I did something that upset him and he smashed the whole inside of the camper up. So now this place where we live is a disaster and he made me stop the truck at one point and ran out onto an overpass and was hanging himself off the overpass over a 5-lane highway that was bumper to bumper traffic, threatening to let go of the railing. What could I have done? What was I supposed to do what had I done that was bad enough to warrant that action? Or what could I do to come back from that in that moment? That was just the control factor. It was just the way that, he kept me there, he kept me with him.
Let's talk about healing and how we've healed, or what can we do now that we couldn't do then? Let's talk about that. What could you do now? You were saying that you couldn't even go to the bathroom or, it's the mail. Melody, what can you do now that you were able to do in that relationship?
I do everything now. I pay my own bills. I got my own house. I don't have to worry a lot. I pay my own, all of the bills are paid. I made sure, like, there's nobody. Now I'm completely alone. I got 2 dogs. I run like support groups, but they're not domestic violence. They're recovery groups. They're Wilbriety groups. And there's like 22 of them. 16 are for my work and like 8 are for my service for the community. And like, I go out and like, I have friends now. I have friends that I could like go have coffee with. They could come over and not be uncomfortable because he's not going to say anything to them to make them uncomfortable or run them off. I could go to California tomorrow. Like nobody's controlling me. It's just, I'm going to probably stay single for a while. And I don't talk to him. He'll drop my son off. I was good though. When Anthony graduated, I had a graduation party and I invited him. He came over to my house. He was distant. I invited him for food though, because we were gonna have we had a barbecue. My brother, I had my family there, and I was kind and patient and tolerant, and like I'm in recovery, so it's different now. Like I have to review things differently. I have to remember to take a step back and say, that's just so I have forgiveness in my heart. It's important to me because it's a big deal. I don't hold grudges, so I'm just like, but I never talk negatively about him around my son. I won't do that. Or I'll just like, I'll get in a different mode. Like when I talk to my son, I'll say, well, you're gonna have to ask your dad. It's a whole different like, I try to help him because I like sometimes I like think like he's in recovery too. My son, like he's got trauma too, and like
From growing up in that.
yeah, like so I'm trying to, but I overly spoiled him with shopping or whatever. Like it just or like
Sometimes-
yes, I never said no, and
But sometimes what I find happens too is the mother will feel guilt because of the way the home the child lived in. So for that reason, maybe not disciplining the way they might. But Kasha, can I ask you what you can do now that you couldn't do when you were in that relationship, and also anything you want to say about healing?
I'm sure. And the honest answer is that I'm still figuring it out. The big transition for me happened when he went to jail. It was 2014, and I'm still kind of figuring out what I can do. I still haven't completely financially recovered. I am single. I'm living with a lot of secondary triggers. So, things that I respond to in a way as if I had trauma surrounding those things, but I don't. He did. And when he experienced those triggers, he would act in ways that put my life in danger. So now they're my triggers. So I give you an example. the smell of diesel fuel. I don't have a negative experience with the smell of diesel fuel, but he did. And so if we're driving and I'm in the passenger seat and he smells that smell for a reason that can't be explained, and he goes into flashback and starts combat driving through the city of Bangor and doesn't stop at stop signs, now my life is in danger because of the smell of diesel fuel, and I associate that in my head. So now I smell the fuel and I start to panic, even though I don't have an experience, or the sound of helicopters, or, countless other things that he would
His
respond.
trauma is your trauma now.
Yeah. So I'm still teasing out what's mine and what's not mine, and how I can mitigate those those responses, and how I can advocate for myself without feeling like I'm compromising someone else's wellness. And healing has come through dedicated practices for me. I wasn't an alcoholic, but I stopped taking alcohol so I can make clear choices, even if even just socially drinking is not okay for me anymore, because I need to have a clear head to make well-informed choices. And I am involved with a Buddhist group, and I practice sitting meditation regularly. Less than a year after he went to jail, I enrolled in school to teach yoga and went to school for that. And that's what I do full time now. I needed a career. And so that's what I did. And that's a healing practice for me also.
Wonderful. And Mary, can you talk to how you can have that come through that horror, and three single women up here, how it's possible to find love again, and that there are good men out there. Of course, we know that.
Yes, there are. And I have one. So that's good. And yeah, I mean, I was certainly not looking after 35 years with the same person, and what I went through, not looking. And it just kind of happened that I had a friend, and we were friends for a long time. And then we realized that we were like best friends, and it just kind of happened. And so I'm married to somebody who's like, have a great time. Enjoy your bonobo sisterhood. He said, he's always supporting me. And the most important thing about him was that I was so broken when we first met. And then when we got together as a couple, I was still, it was like not enough time. My kids hate me. My brothers and sisters won't talk to me. Like, everything was just awful. And all I did was cry and be full of rage. I had so much anger. And I kept saying to him, so when are you going to get sick of me? When are you going to get rid of me? Because I know I'm broken and I'm no good. And, he would just say, as long as it takes, Mary, for you to, cry and scream and rage or do what you got to do, as long as it takes, I'm not going anywhere. And I didn't believe him. Did not believe him for quite a while. But I was like, well, I feel safe. I feel happy. And now I do believe him. But it took 5 years probably for me to actually believe that he wasn't going anywhere.
Thank you. Any thoughts, comments, questions? Well, thank you. I think what we're going to do is we're just going to mill around and just have refreshments and just one-on-one talks. But yes.
Yeah, I did have one question.
Yes.
Was there ever an opportunity to seek counseling or a therapist to either get advice or to say, can my partner and I come in? Maybe the partner would refuse. But was that ever an option? I know it's expensive, but there are counselors in training and that kind of thing. Speaking from my own experience.
Yeah, therapy has helped my children a lot, and it helped me. The one thing about therapy with my ex is anytime I told him I was going to leave him, that's when he would say, I'll go to therapy. And he was always going to go to therapy. And then we get back together. No, I'm not going to go to therapy. So does anybody have any other comments about the therapy thing?
Unwilling, an unwilling partner.
Yeah. Melanie?
I am for therapy. I was in therapy like for like 7 years, and then I'm in therapy again now. But like, I'm for therapy, I believe in it, like weekly, especially. I kind of pushed them. There was a couple times there, I was like, you gotta go to therapy. Like, I'm not gonna talk to you, I can't, like, yeah, that was when I was strict, and I said, I can't. You got some stuff going on, like, I'm not gonna deal with it, please go to therapy. And then he went to therapy, but it didn't last, it didn't last too long, like I thought it would be like years, but it was just the months, and then there was an excuse, and then it was bailed out.
How about you, Kasia? He really needed therapy. Did he go to it? And did the VA would have paid for it, I would think.
We were in 4 different kinds of therapy. Mine, his, ours together, and a spiritual advisor. And he was so clever that he would sit there and gaslight right in front of the professional.
Did the professional
Right.
see it?
No,
You saw
right
it
in
naked.
front. I knew, of course,
Mhm.
and it made me like, you've got to be kidding. This, he's lying. This, you've got to be kidding. Like, this is not how this is. He's turning it around. And the professional would be like, calm down, sweetie.
Calm down.
Oh,
Calm
that's
down.
horrible. That's
Yeah.
horrible.
So that's a wishful thought. And I hope that he does find some peace with some good professional help and medication.
Oh, I have to say that, so my ex, there was a rampage that lasted from like 10 at night till 2 in the morning, which involved, him threatening to kill me, pushing the phone off when I tried to reach for it, keeping me captive on the bed for like 3 hours, or, and all this time, like pummeling me basically. And in the end, I had bruises, the door was broken down, all this stuff. So he ends up getting a deferred disposition, which is you plead guilty and with good behavior, and not good behavior to me because he was still tormenting me, but good behavior, I don't think call that. The charge is dismissed. That's what the district attorney did. A fine of less than $4,000, and he had to go to therapy. But what that meant was therapist of his choice, one time, and no report made. So that's justice in Maine for you around domestic violence. Any more questions? So I think we could just mill around. We'll be here for the next, what time is it? We'll all be here for at least 20 more minutes or something. So just to hang out. And I want to thank you so much for joining us, and Mary, you too, and speaking out about, I know, is it hard? How do you feel now? Is it hard are you worse after sitting here than you were in the beginning? Or is it, if you don't mind saying, like?
No, I don't feel worse having spoken about it a little bit, but I almost feel like this, I just wish it's just scratching the surface, I wish I could tell you more. I wish I
Yeah.
could tell you all about everything that happened so that it would be a fuller picture, and it's just, I think it honestly is still just that defense mechanism. Like, I'm not the crazy one. I think I just want to explain myself even more. I'm still working through that.
Well, I have a radio show and I would love for you to be a guest on it. Melody has been a guest, and we have an hour and we could talk all about, your experience. And is there anything else that you would like to share right now?
I would like to say thank you for your attention, because speaking out loud is healing. And I think it was Anne Voskamp, I think is the author's name, and she said shame dies when stories are told in safe spaces. So thank you for that.
Thank you. How do you feel, Melody?
So I like to talk about things openly because it lets it out. So I don't mind talking about it at all. I've got like the practice already of like the groups. I'm telling anybody that is struggling with anything, the groups that I went to at Partnership Peace, I'll keep doing that. Like any support group that's domestic violence, like they should have one in every town because it's so helpful to talk about, especially if there's women around and they got the same experience and you didn't know, and you could talk about it with them. It's so healthy to release it, and you feel better, and then you're like, okay, so I'm not crazy. So it's a good feeling to talk about it. Like, we need more support groups for sure. That would be super helpful.
Yeah, we have an online weekly support group, but yeah, support, talking about it. I can't write about it. I have an NDA, non-disclosure agreement where I'm not allowed to write about him for publication. But I can speak. Thank God for that.
Just thank you for your courage. It's very inspiring to witness, what you've shared, and it definitely can be so shame-based when it's in secrecy, right, in darkness, and so I really appreciate you sharing.
Thank you.